I was sitting on the upper deck of a luxury cruise liner, sipping my pre-dinner cocktail, the vast, empty ocean spreading out to the horizon. It was a perfect, tranquil moment, the culmination of 2 years of saving for a dream trip. Then my 16-year-old granddaughter, Maya, appeared, her face pale, her eyes wide with a terror I'd never seen. She didn't shout, she didn't cry. She leaned in close, her voice a rapid, frantic whisper that cut through the gentle sea breeze and the music. Asterisk asterisk, Grandpa, leave the liner, now. Asterisk asterisk, she didn't explain. She didn't offer a reason, just that single, terrifying command. My first instinct, the rational voice of an 80-year-old man, was to dismiss it as a teenage panic attack, a dramatic flare. But the look in her eyes, that profound, cold fear was real. I had 1 minute, maybe less, to decide if I should dismiss the words of a terrified child or risk throwing away everything, including my own life, on an unexplained hunch. I chose to trust her. Was I insane for betting my retirement and my safety on a 16-year-old's unexplained terror, or was my grandfather's instinct the only thing that saved me? Tell me honestly, would you have followed her out? To truly grasp the weight of that decision, you have to understand my relationship with Maya and the man I was before that evening. My name is Elias, and until that day, I was just a retired history teacher, a widower, a man who believed in logic, order, and empirical evidence. I had raised 2 solid, practical children, and I adored my 3 grandchildren. Maya was my youngest, and, admittedly, the most peculiar. She wasn't moody or rebellious. She was intensely intelligent, quiet, and possessed a curiosity that went beyond normal teen interests. While her friends were obsessed with social media, Maya was fascinated by complex patterns, systems theory, and the human subconscious. She often spoke in abstract terms that left me slightly baffled, but never dismissive. Her mother, my daughter Sarah, often worried about Maya's intensity, suggesting she was too high-strung, or needed more normal friends. I always defended her, recognizing a brilliant, unique mind. The cruise itself was a monumental undertaking for me. I had booked a 2-week journey through the Caribbean, a lavish expense meant to celebrate my 80th birthday and, frankly, to inject some adventure back into my solitary life since my wife passed. Maya had initially been invited to join me, but a conflict with an advanced summer physics camp meant she could only see me off at the port. However, at the last minute, just 48 hours before we sailed, her camp was abruptly cancelled due to an outbreak of illness. Sarah, seeing a chance for some peace and quiet, immediately booked Maya onto the cruise with me. I was thrilled. I saw it as a final chance for us to bond, just the 2 of us, before she headed off to university. The first few days were idyllic. We swam, we explored ports, and we spent hours talking about ancient history and theoretical physics. Maya was her usual self, contemplative, observant, but completely at ease. The change happened suddenly on the 5th day. We were 2 days out from the nearest port, a long stretch of uninterrupted sea travel. I noticed Maya becoming withdrawn. She stopped looking at the ocean and started looking at the ship, studying the ventilation grills, the wiring conduits, and the behavior of the crew. She was constantly using her phone, not for games or social media, but taking rapid-fire pictures of things: a fire extinguisher gauge, a signpost, a service hatch. I asked her about it, and she just vaguely said, "Gathering data, Grandpa, just observing the system." I chuckled and told her she'd make a great detective. I had no idea how literal she was being. Then came the pre-dinner cocktail hour on the 6th day. I was enjoying the sunset. Maya was nowhere in sight. I had just raised the glass to my lips when she materialized from the stairwell. Her movement wasn't normal walking. It was a focused, almost military stride. Her clothes were wrong too. She wasn't dressed for dinner. She was wearing comfortable travel clothes and carrying a small backpack. That detail was the first true alarm bell. When she reached my table, she didn't even acknowledge the drink. That cold, whispered command, asterisk asterisk, Grandpa, leave the liner, now, asterisk asterisk, I leaned back, trying to keep my voice steady. Maya, what on earth are you talking about? Leave? We're in the middle of the ocean. Are you feeling ill? Her eyes, usually so expressive, were flat, fixed on something just beyond my shoulder. No time, Grandpa, I figured it out. There's a structural failure in the bilge keel mounting, not a slow leak. A catastrophic stress fracture caused by a sequence of poorly maintained repairs and the excessive weight on Deck C. The thermal expansion is compounding the instability. We have maybe 30 minutes before the first explosive decompression. The words tumbled out in a terrifying stream of technical jargon. She wasn't describing a general danger. She was reciting a specific engineering failure. I looked around. Everyone else was laughing, sipping their wine, taking photos. There was no alarm, no panic, no announcement. Maya, darling, that's absurd. How could you possibly know that? Are you getting this from a movie? I asked, trying to introduce logic. She shook her head, a single, sharp motion. I used the ship's public Wi-Fi access point, bypassed the security protocols on a crew terminal I found near the engine observation port, and cross-referenced the maintenance logs with the ship's current real-time ballast distribution and hull stress data. The crew knows. They are trying to patch it silently before we hit the high-pressure zone, but they are too late. The patch will fail. It will breach the main seal. They just want to delay the panic. Her explanation was insane, yet delivered with a clinical conviction that chilled me to the bone. If she was lying, she was the best actress I had ever met. If she was right, every moment I wasted was a death sentence. Where would we go? I asked, the cocktail forgotten. She pointed to a sleek, yellow object moored conspicuously close to the port side. The emergency resupply and postal tender, which had briefly pulled alongside about an hour ago to deliver some last-minute specialized equipment and mail, and was now preparing to depart. It was a fast, relatively small vessel, designed for quick ocean crossings. That mail tender leaves in 5 minutes. I already signaled the captain using the anonymous override channel. He thinks I'm the first officer sending an emergency test request. I told him we have 2 minutes to board. We have to go now, Grandpa. We have to create our own emergency. The absurdity was staggering. Abandon a 5-star, multi-million-dollar cruise liner based on a hacker. Teenager's structural analysis to board a small postal boat. My reputation, my ticket, my possessions, my entire retirement savings wrapped up in the non-refundable luxury cruise. It all flashed before my eyes, but then I looked at Maya again. Her hand was shaking, but her eyes were fixed on the goal. My rational mind was screaming no, but my grandfather's instinct, the deep, primal urge to protect her, was louder. I stood up. All right, Maya, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Show me the way. We didn't take the main stairs. Maya dragged me through service corridors and crew access hatches. She seemed to magically know the codes for. We slid past laughing cooks, scurrying stewards, and, worryingly, a couple of highly stressed engineers who were marching with tools, their faces tight with fear. We reached the restricted gangway of the mail tender. 2 large crew members, one holding a clipboard, blocked the ramp. Maya didn't hesitate. She threw her small backpack at the clipboard guy's head, creating a split-second distraction, and pulled me onto the ramp. Emergency medical transfer, cardiac episode. She screamed at the remaining guard, pointing frantically at my chest. I played along, stumbling dramatically and clutching my chest. Before the guard could react, Maya had cut the auxiliary mooring line with a small, specialized utility knife she pulled from her backpack, and was already sprinting toward the tender's bridge. I heard the man on the ramp shout. I saw people running towards us from the ship's main deck, but the mail tender's engine roared to life. Within seconds, we were pulling away from the colossal white hull of the cruise liner. I stood on the deck of the small tender, leaning against the railing, watching my dream cruise ship shrink into the distance. Relief washed over me, immediately followed by the terrifying realization of what I had just done. I was now on a strange vessel, having committed an act of maritime trespassing with my granddaughter based on zero visible evidence. I had effectively destroyed my retirement savings, abandoned my luggage, and probably faced a lifetime of legal battles. So that's the situation I was in, having jumped ship based on a technical hunch. I looked back at the cruise liner, now just a large, white speck on the blue ocean. Before I tell you what happened next, the final, agonizing minutes of waiting, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have stayed, hoping Maya was wrong, or would you have risked everything and trusted the child? The captain of the mail tender, a burly, suspicious man named Javier, was furious. He had two unexpected emergency passengers who had damaged his gear, assaulted his crew, and forced him to leave prematurely. He immediately contacted the cruise liner, demanding an explanation and insisting we be returned. That's when Maya took over. She grabbed the ship's internal phone and calmly told Captain Javier, "The cruise liner will be dealing with a catastrophic hull breach in approximately 9 minutes. You will not be going back. If you want to save the most lives, you need to turn your vessel immediately to a bearing of 2.7 aero and maximize speed to create distance." Javier, initially defiant, stared at this small girl who spoke with the cold authority of a naval commander. He was about to laugh when his emergency radio squawked to life. It was garbled, terrified communication from the cruise ship. It wasn't about us, it was about an uncontrolled flooding event in the lower decks. Javier's face went white. He looked at Maya, then at the distant, massive ship, and then, slowly, he turned the wheel. We sped away. Every second was agonizing. Maya stood rigid on the deck, staring at the liner through a pair of binoculars she'd pulled from her backpack, silently counting down the minutes. I stood beside her, my heart hammering against my ribs, convinced I was about to watch nothing happen, confirming my irrationality. At T-3 minutes, Maya pointed. Smoke. Ventilation system failure in the aft. Sure enough, a thin plume of black smoke was visible from the ship's rear. Panic finally gripped the mail tender. Then, at T-0, precisely when Maya's calculations predicted, the unimaginable happened. There was no huge Hollywood explosion. Instead, the cruise liner, that massive, pristine structure, seemed to suddenly sigh. A horrific, grinding sound, like 10,000 tons of steel tearing itself apart, reached us even across the distance. A massive, black torrent of water erupted violently from the ship's midsection, followed by what looked like the bow snapping upwards. The colossal vessel tilted violently to the side, then, with terrifying speed, began to sink. Not slowly, but like a monstrous, wounded whale collapsing into the deep. Within 15 minutes, the immense cruise liner was gone, leaving nothing but a vast field of debris, oil, and the terrible screams of those who hadn't escaped. Javier immediately reversed course, rushing to the scene to become the first rescue vessel. The horror of the sight was indescribable. The water was filled with people, desperate and struggling. We pulled dozens aboard the small tender, the crew working frantically, pulling people from the wreckage. I spent hours helping, using my old first aid knowledge, distributing blankets and water, while Maya, calm and focused, helped Javier coordinate the location of survivors using the tender's radar. She was no longer a terrified teenager, she was a focused savior. When the larger rescue vessels finally arrived, including military craft, the scene was chaos, but we had saved over 40 people. The first thing the Navy commander asked for was an explanation of how our tiny mail tender was the only vessel on scene, and how we had predicted the disaster. I stepped forward, exhausted, my clothes stained with oil and sea salt. I simply said, "My granddaughter predicted it. She saw the data." The investigation that followed was a media circus. The sinking was confirmed to be a catastrophic, previously covered-up structural failure, exactly as Maya had described. My granddaughter, the math geek, became an international sensation. The crew that had remained on board was either killed or arrested. They had indeed been trying to cover up the instability to save their jobs. Maya, using nothing but public access points and her genius-level understanding of engineering systems, had seen the deadly pattern in the data that the trained professionals had deliberately hidden. She hadn't just saved me, she had saved every person we pulled from the water. My financial concerns evaporated instantly. The cruise line was sued out of existence. I received a settlement that didn't just replace my retirement savings, it quadrupled them. More importantly, I became an undeniable hero, along with Maya. She was offered full scholarships to every major engineering and technology school in the world. And now, at 18, she works as a security consultant for a major maritime safety organization, dedicating her life to preventing exactly that kind of catastrophe. My relationship with my daughter Sarah, who had previously been so dismissive of Maya's peculiar interests, changed instantly. Sarah finally saw her daughter's genius for what it was, not a quirk, but a superpower. She apologized to me and to Maya for her lack of support, and our family bond is now stronger than it has ever been. I still have moments when I look back at that deck, at the cocktail, at the sunset, and I think of the sheer lunacy of following a 16-year-old on a blind hunch. But that day taught me a lesson more profound than any history book could offer. Never underestimate the sharp mind of a child, and always trust the instinct that binds a family together. Logic and evidence are important, but sometimes a grandfather's love and a granddaughter's genius are the only things that can save you from a sinking ship. I lost my luggage, but I gained everything else. And every single person we saved is a testament to the fact that I made the right choice. So, that's the tale of the cruise that went under. A story of a hunch, a hidden contract, and a catastrophic consequence. I hope my experience serves as a loud reminder to always listen to the quiet voice that tells you something is terribly wrong. Like this video if you were on my side, if you think my quick decision was justified. Subscribe for more stories like this, stories that prove genius and bravery come in the most unexpected packages. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. What would you have done with the data? I'll see you all in the next story.